Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
The phone rang like a gunshot in the dark, tearing through the silence of the shop. I jolted upright, heart racing, half tangled in the thin blanket on my cot. It was 3 in the damn morning. The screen lit up. Doug, Indiana. I answered with a grunt. Yeah? Rick, your building's on fire. It's on the news. It's bad, man. I blinked hard, trying to make sense of what he said. Then I did something that caught even me off guard. I laughed. Loud, like a real deep belly laugh. Doug didn't laugh back. I'm serious. You live on the top floor, right? Channel 4's got footage, your place is gone. Quick note, before we go any further, share in the comments which country or city you're watching from. And let's continue. I swung my legs over the side of the cot and rubbed my eyes. All around me, sawdust clung to the floor like snow. My miter saw sat quiet by the wall. The walnut sideboard I'd been polishing yesterday gleamed in the dim light from the workshop's overhead bulb. I looked around and realized everything that mattered was already here. The shop was my life now. My tools, my pieces, my future. I'd moved it all here just the day before. Pure dumb luck. Or fate. Hell if I knew. My apartment? 4th floor walk-up in a pre-war dump with a busted elevator and ceilings that dripped when it rained. Rent-controlled, yeah, but falling apart. The only thing I had left in there was a mattress, a few changes of clothes, and some old photo albums. I stood up, my back cracking, and grabbed my coat off the hook by the workbench. Doug kept talking. You okay? I mean, I thought you lived there. I did, I said, slipping into my boots. But I'm not dead. Still, my stomach dropped when I thought about the people I shared that building with. Mr. Nolan, 2 doors down, retired janitor, Bronx born and raised. The newlyweds in 6D, just married last summer. The Russian lady downstairs. What was her name? Galina? Rick, you there? Yeah, I said, flipping off the shop lights. I gotta go. I grabbed my keys, slammed the door shut behind me, and sprinted to the truck. The streets were dead quiet, but red light flashed against the clouds above the rooftops. That fire had taken my apartment. Yeah. But I was still standing. Now I had to make damn sure everyone else was too. I tore down Flushing Avenue like a bat out of hell, blew through 2 red lights before I spotted the barricades and the flashing lights. Fire trucks lined the whole damn block. Cops waved people back, but I didn't stop. I jumped the curb, slammed the truck into park, and ran straight toward the building. Still in the same dusty jeans and the flannel shirt I'd slept in, I ducked under the police tape like I belonged there. Nobody stopped me. The place looked like a war zone. Smoke poured out of what used to be my windows. The air was thick and oily, burnt plastic, scorched wires, drywall turned to ash. The whole street was soaked. Water ran like a shallow river around my boots. I kept moving, eyes scanning the crowd. Then I saw him, Mr. Nolan, slouched against the side of an ambulance, wrapped in one of those Red Cross blankets like it could actually block out what just happened. His skin looked gray, eyes bloodshot, mouth hanging half open like he'd been breathing smoke for hours. Mr. Nolan? I jogged over, dropped to a crouch beside him. You all right? He turned, slow. Rick. His voice was rough, like someone had poured gravel down his throat. We thought you were in there. I wasn't. I touched his shoulder. They get everybody out? He didn't answer, just shook his head, slow. They haven't found everyone yet. My stomach knotted. I stood up, started scanning faces in the crowd. There was that bus driver from 5B, Luis from 4D, but no sign of the newlyweds from 6D. No sign of Jordan, the college kid who lived across from me. And no Galina from 3A, the old Russian lady who fed stray cats and always offered me weird candy from a dish by her door. The wind shifted, and I caught a face full of the smoke. I coughed hard. Firefighters were still going at it, dragging soaked hoses up the front stairs. The windows were blown out. Flames were gone, but the building looked like a hollowed-out shell. I turned to one of the firemen stepping down from a ladder. "You get everybody?" He paused, yanked off his helmet, and shook his head. "Still searching. It's a maze up there." I stood there, fists clenched, jaw locked. I knew that building. I knew how easy it was to get lost in the dark, even without flames and smoke. We waited. I don't know how long. Could have been 10 minutes or an hour. One by one they came down, carrying people, walking people, some leaning hard on the shoulders of firefighters. And by some miracle, they were all alive. Jordan coughing so hard he threw up. Galena, eyes wide and wild, clutching that stupid candy dish to her chest. And the couple from 6D, Kara and Malcolm, stumbling out barefoot, holding each other like they'd never let go. It was close, way too close. By sunrise, the fire was out. The building wasn't just damaged, it was dead. Gutted all the way through. Some walls still standing, but barely. I looked at it and knew nobody was going back in there. A fire marshal came over, clipboard under one arm, helmet tilted back on his head. "You Rick?" "Yeah? You live here?" "Top floor. Wasn't home." He nodded once, glanced at the building like he was still putting pieces together. Then he looked me square in the face. "This fire," he said low. "It doesn't look accidental." I felt it hit, right in the gut, like someone dropped a steel beam on my chest. I didn't even say anything, just stared at him. "Too many points of origin," he went on. "Wiring doesn't explain it. We'll run a full investigation, but off the record, something's off." I took a step back, heart pounding, smoke still thick in the back of my throat. My brain went fuzzy, like I couldn't process it. That building wasn't worth much. Not to us, anyway. But to someone? It was starting to make too much sense. I turned away from the ruins, fists tight, and walked down the block to get some air. My boots splashed in a puddle as I went. I needed answers, and I wasn't waiting for anyone to hand them to me. I didn't go home, didn't sleep, just drove straight back to the shop and sat there for hours, staring at the pieces I'd been carving for months. Chairs, benches, cabinets, all of it polished, perfect, quiet, like they were holding their breath, waiting for me to figure out what came next. But I couldn't work, couldn't even pick up a chisel. All I could think about was the fire marshal's voice. "This doesn't look accidental." So I started digging. First stop was Luis, from 4D. He'd been around the block, always had a good eye for when things didn't add up. I caught him on the sidewalk outside the community center a couple days after the fire. "Hey man," I said. "You see anything weird before the fire? People hanging around?" He glanced around, then leaned in. "Actually, yeah, 2 guys in suits. Showed up last week. Not city guys. No ID badges. Just stood out front pointing at stuff. I asked if they were contractors. One of them laughed. I raised an eyebrow. What were they doing? Taking photos, talking to each other like they already owned the place." I nodded, gut twisting again. Then I called Mr. Nolan. His voice was still rough, but he didn't hesitate. "Old man Vasquez," he said. "He skipped town. Ain't seen him in weeks." That didn't sit right. Vasquez had been our landlord since I moved in. Cheap, stubborn, but old school. He lived on the first floor. He never just disappeared. Later that night, Blake called me. Blake? He was a tenant's friend, a freelance reporter with a nose for shady shit. "Hey, Rick," he said, voice tight. "You sitting down?" "Why?" "Because Vasquez sold the building 3 months ago." I nearly dropped the phone. "To who?" "Harborview Equity, LLC out of Jersey. On paper, they're a property investment firm, but you start pulling at the threads. It gets dirty fast." I opened my laptop and started looking it up while we talked. Sure enough, a week before the fire, Harborview filed permits to demolish the building. 3 days after that, they submitted a development plan, luxury condos, boutique retail on the ground floor. You know the type. "Timing's real convenient," I muttered. Not the first time, Blake said. They've done this before. Gentrification fires, we call them. Never a direct line, always an accident. Faulty wiring, gas leaks. Mysterious blazes just before a neighborhood flips. You saying they lit it? I'm saying they made it easy for something to happen. He wasn't wrong. I started piecing things together in my head. Little signs I'd ignored. The hallway lights had been out for 2 weeks. The smoke alarms, half of them didn't work. That busted back stairwell never got fixed. And nobody from the management company ever answered the damn phone. Blake kept talking. Harborview's got a pattern. They buy old rent-stabilized buildings cheap, fast-track the permits, and then suddenly, boom, place is cleared out. They don't start the fire, Rick. They just don't stop it. Accelerated clearance, I said, like I was tasting the words. Exactly. And your building fits. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the sawdust on the floor. My blood started boiling. This wasn't just some fluke. It was a play. A move on a board they thought nobody was watching. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a witness. And I wasn't about to let them bulldoze that truth just because they had deeper pockets and cleaner shoes. Next morning, I walked back to the ruins. The whole block was fenced off now. Bright orange signs said, "Danger, unstable structure." I ignored them and found the fire damage line. You could still smell it. Wet soot, melted plastic, scorched wood. Black streaks up the brick. I picked up a piece of burned floorboard and stuck it in my truck. Later, I called Blake back. "You want to go deeper?" "I'm already in," he said. "Let's find out who's pulling the strings." I looked around my shop, took in the tools, the silence, the half-finished rocking chair by the window. It wasn't just furniture anymore. It was evidence. It was voice. They thought they could burn us out and move on. But I still had my hands, and I was about to put them to work. The diner was packed. Vinyl booths, flickering lights, smell of burnt coffee and overcooked bacon clinging to the walls. We'd organized the meeting fast, just a flyer in the laundromat and a few texts between tenants. Word got around. I sat near the back, arms crossed, watching people file in. Nolan, Galena, the couple from 6D, Luis, even the college kid with the half-burned laptop bag. Some of them looked pissed. Some looked scared. Most looked tired. Then she walked in. Eliza Carver. Blazer, high heels, clipboard tucked under her arm like she was about to teach a damn seminar. She moved like she didn't notice the looks people were giving her, or didn't care. Her smile was tight. Practiced. "Good evening," she said, standing near the register, just loud enough to make people stop talking. "I'm Eliza Carver, Community Liaison for Harborview Equity. I want to start by saying we're deeply sorry for your loss." I bit my tongue. She continued, "We've been working closely with the fire department, and we understand the challenges you're facing. To assist with temporary housing and essentials, Harborview is offering a one-time relief payment of $3,500 per household." She opened a slim folder, pulled out a stack of pre-filled forms. "All you need to do is sign a basic release form, acknowledging that Harborview is not liable for the cause of the fire, and we'll process your payment immediately." Silence. You could hear the hum of the old fridge behind the counter. Then Kara, one half of the couple from 6D, stood up. $3,000? We lost everything. Eliza gave her a look that was supposed to be empathetic. "It's not compensation. It's assistance. We understand it's not everything, but it's immediate. No red tape." Luis leaned forward. "You mean no lawsuits?" Her smile didn't move. "We're trying to help." I stood. Bullshit. All heads turned. I walked up, slow and steady, and took one of the release forms from the stack. Held it in both hands like I was reading it, then tore it clean down the middle. My shop got cleaned out. Tools, furniture, nearly $20,000 gone. No insurance, my screw-up. But I'm not signing squat. She raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Hargrave, You lit that building up. Maybe not with your own hands, but you let it happen. You planned for it. And now you're here waving hush money around like we're supposed to thank you? Mr. Hargrave, she said, voice dropping, you're making this personal. It's just business. I stepped in close. Lady, you torched my home. That's damn personal. The whole place went dead quiet again. Then someone clapped. One person, then two. Then it was everyone. Not a big, raucous cheer, just that slow, angry rhythm of people who'd had enough. Eliza's face didn't flinch, but her eyes went cold. She gathered her forms, clicked her pen, and said, If anyone would like to speak privately, I'll be outside for the next 20 minutes. Then she turned and walked out. Some neighbors followed. Can't blame 'em. $3,500 cash on the table and nowhere to go? That's a hell of a temptation. I don't hold it against them. But me? I locked up the diner that night with Nolan and Luis, and I walked back to the shop with a fire in my gut. I didn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning, I heard a noise. Not loud. Just a soft clack, like something falling. I grabbed a flashlight and a crowbar, flipped the shop lights on, and scanned the room. The front door was still locked. But the back? The bolt had been forced. Not broken, just forced. Subtle. I stepped inside and saw the mess. They didn't take anything, but they made sure I knew they'd been there. One of my cabinets was pulled off the hinges, nothing missing, just the door splintered on the floor. A tub of wood shavings had been dumped all over the main work table. A finished stool I'd left near the window had one leg snapped clean in half. The trash can had been overturned and the fire extinguisher was rolled out like a toy. I stood there in the middle of the sawdust in silence, breathing hard, fists clenched. Message received. They wanted to remind me that I was alone, that I had no insurance, that I had no backup plan, that this little fight I was starting, it could disappear just as easy as a match dropped in a stairwell. I picked up the busted stool and sat on the floor. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because they were nervous, which meant I was doing something right. I grabbed my phone and texted Blake. Me. They broke into the shop, didn't steal a thing, just left a message. Blake. Damn, you okay? Me. Yeah, but I'm done playing nice. I stood, swept the wood shavings into a pile with my boot, and started sketching something new on the shop wall. Real rough, right in the dust. A jagged shape, a twisted frame. I didn't know what it was yet, but it sure as hell wasn't going to be quiet. By the next morning, I had sawdust in my hair, smoke in my lungs, and rage in my hands. I didn't sleep, didn't eat, just carved. For hours, maybe days. I lost track. The first thing I built was a frame, warped, blackened, jagged around the edges. Took the broken leg from the stool they snapped and mounted it upside down, stuck into scorched plywood like a spike. Next came a busted chair with the seat burned out. I bolted that to the wall and ran nails along the edge like teeth. It wasn't furniture. It was a warning. Then Blake called. Rick, I pulled the thread. Yeah? Harborview's a front. The real owner's an LLC based out of Delaware. That LLC's owned by a hedge fund in Connecticut. Some real estate capital group that's been flipping buildings all over Brooklyn and Queens. I let that sink in. They got names? I asked. Couple. But here's the kicker. One of their board members? Guy named Joel Hendricks. He sits on the city zoning committee. I slammed my chisel down hard enough to split the edge of my workbench. So they approved their own permits. Exactly. Of course they did. They lit the fire, sold themselves the land, then rubber-stamped their own project to replace it. All clean, all legal, on paper. Blake exhaled through the phone. You still in? I'm not just in, I said. I'm gonna carve their whole damn story into wood. So I got to work. Not alone either. Doug came up from Indiana with a beat-up trailer and a cooler full of gas station sandwiches. Heard you were picking a fight with Wall Street, he said. Figured you could use backup. He helped me haul materials to a cheap warehouse he found through some guy he met in a dive bar. Place smelled like mold and motor oil, but it had space and a ceiling that didn't leak. I set up shop in the corner and started building out the exhibit. We called it Smoke Damage. I made 30 pieces in total. Each one told a piece of what happened. Twisted metal beams, door handles melted into slabs of maple, photo frames torched until only the glass survived. I carved faces too. Mr. Nolan's worn frown, Kara and Malcolm clutching each other, Galina's candy dish half melted into the floor. Real people. Real loss. First night we opened, maybe 15 people showed up. Mostly friends, neighbors, a couple art students who thought it was a political statement. They weren't wrong, but then Blake ran a piece online. Photos of the exhibit, quotes from the fire marshal, details about Harborview's shell companies. He named names, tagged city officials, didn't hold back, and people started coming, not just to look, but to feel. Landlords, artists, activists, survivors of other fires from Harlem to Bushwick. Some cried. One woman punched the wall. Another left a Polaroid of her mother on a burned windowsill I'd mounted as sculpture. Then Harborview came knocking again. Same deal. Eliza Carver. Only this time she wasn't smiling. She sent a courier in a suit, holding a manila envelope like it was radioactive. From Harborview, he said, not even looking me in the eye. Private settlement. For you only. I opened it. $25,000. Cash. No strings. Except the same gag order as before. Sign the release, drop the noise, walk away. I looked up at the guy. You deliver this to everyone who loses a home, or just the ones that talk too loud? He shifted. They're offering you a chance to move on. I handed the envelope back. Tell him to go to hell. He left without another word. Doug was standing behind me the whole time. You know, he said, 25 grand could buy a lot of walnut. Yeah, I said, but not a damn bit of justice. Next week, Smoke Damage made the local news. Channel 4, then NY1. Hell, even some national blog ran a story about the carpenter fighting back. I hated the headline, but I kept carving. The more people saw it, the more I realized this wasn't just about me, or my tools, or even that building. It was about every person getting priced out, burned out, pushed out by people who didn't give a damn who got hurt, so long as the square footage cashed out. And Harborview? They thought they were buying silence. But I was done staying quiet. I made one more piece that week, a 7-foot slab of oak, blackened down one side. In the center, I carved a matchstick, just one. But behind it, I carved the shape of a building, my old building, reduced to smoke. I hung it on the front door of the warehouse. They wanted to erase us? Fine. We'd burn back brighter. I was sweeping out the corner of the warehouse when I heard the door creak. Figured it was Doug, or maybe someone from the neighborhood dropping by to take another look at the exhibit. It wasn't. Aaron stood in the doorway, hands in his jacket pockets, looking 10 years older than the last time I saw him. Mom told me what happened, he said. My grip tightened on the broom handle. That right? He stepped inside, eyes scanning the walls, burned wood, twisted nails, one of Galina's melted teacups stuck into resin. He nodded once. This is a lot. I shrugged. I'm pissed. That count as okay? He cracked a smile. It counts. I leaned the broom against the wall. What do you want, Aaron? He scratched the back of his neck. I work in city planning now, Queen's office. I've seen Harborview pull the same kind of crap. Rundown buildings, fast-tracked permits, fires just before zoning reviews. My boss won't touch it, but I've been keeping notes. I raised an eyebrow. You serious? He pulled a folded file out of his coat. Dates, names, emails, building inspectors skipping fire code reviews. I even got a chain where they're told not to document violations unless someone files an official complaint. Most tenants don't even know they can. I grabbed the folder, flipped through the papers. This wasn't rumor. This was receipts. Permits rushed through in under 48 hours. Properties purchased by LLCs with matching P.O. boxes. One line jumped out. Do not flag for full inspection. Owner known to committee. I looked at him. Why now? He shrugged. Because it's finally personal. I didn't say anything for a second. Just nodded. All right then. Let's make it count. We set up shop in the back of the warehouse. I cleared off a work table, he opened his laptop, and for the first time in a year, we sat side by side without arguing. He showed me how they rerouted permit approvals through specific channels, how Harborview used subcontractors tied to shell companies, which meant when violations popped up, there was no one to pin them on. I gave him floor plans of the building before the fire, marked all the stuff we'd reported, faulty alarms, broken sprinklers, loose gas lines. He cross-referenced it with city maintenance logs. None of this is recorded, he said, like it never happened. We worked late. Ate cold pizza. Slept in the warehouse on 2 army cots Doug dragged in. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was swinging blind. Aaron helped build out the second half of Smoke Damage. Put up lights, mounted a projection loop of tenant interviews on a back wall. He was the one who suggested we add QR codes linking to the city records. Let people see the paper trail, he said, and people did. We doubled the foot traffic in 2 days. More reporters came. Teachers brought students. A local councilman showed up, didn't say a word, just took photos and left. Donations started hitting my Venmo and Doug's GoFundMe. One guy handed me a check for $1,000 and said, "You're doing God's work, man." Lawyers started calling, activists, tenant unions. One legal clinic offered to represent all the displaced tenants pro bono. I looked at Aaron. You realize we're in this now, right? All the way. He smiled. I wasn't planning on leaving. That hit me. Not just because of the fight, but because it was him. We hadn't spoken since the blowout, over politics, over his mom, over the fact I hadn't called in 6 months and he didn't care enough to either. Typical father-son crap. But now, we were shoulder to shoulder, dragging truth out of drywall and ash. One night, near midnight, we sat outside the warehouse, drinking cheap coffee and listening to trucks rumble down the avenue. Aaron said, "You think any of this will stick?" I looked at the building across the street, another old walk-up with scaffolding already creeping up its side. "Doesn't matter," I said. "We stick. That's the part they don't count on." He nodded. "You ever think we'd be doing this together?" "Nope. Figured we'd patch things up over beers. Maybe a game. Instead, we're fighting a real estate cartel." I grinned. Welcome to the family business. He stayed the rest of the week, helped rewire the exhibit, install a security camera, organize files for the lawyer who promised to file an injunction against Harborview's next project. We even carved a piece together, a door frame split in 2. I did the carving. He inscribed the code violations along the sides. We hung it right by the entrance. It didn't just tell the story. It named names. A week after Aaron and I hung the code violation door, the pushback started. First, it was subtle. Comments on our exhibit's event page calling me a liar, saying the fire was just old wiring, accusing me of cashing in on tragedy. Then the trolls got bolder. They posted fake reviews of my woodworking shop, said I was exploiting victims, faking documents, stirring up drama for attention. One post said, "Should have burned with the building." Doug wanted to punch something. "Cowards with keyboards." Then I found my van with all 4 tires slashed. That morning, I just stood in the street, hands on my hips, looking at the flaps of rubber peeled like skin off bone. There was a jagged screw stuck in the back left tire, like they wanted me to see it. Aaron walked out of the shop holding 2 coffees. Stopped cold. "You call this subtle?" "Nope," I said. "I call it scared." 2 days later, I got the envelope. Certified mail. Official letterhead. Some corporate law firm out of Midtown claimed I was guilty of defamation and malicious interference with contractual interests. Big words for shut the hell up. I handed it to Aaron. He skimmed it, scoffed, and said, "They're terrified. You're costing them millions." I sat down on the front step, rubbed my eyes. I was just trying to save a building. Now you're making it harder for them to bury others. We didn't slow down. Blake dropped a second expose on his site. Longer, deeper, angrier. This time he had real teeth. He interviewed a former maintenance contractor who worked on 3 Harborview buildings. The guy admitted on camera that he was told not to fix things in non-priority units. He said the words like they tasted rotten. Leaks, alarms, stair rails. Doesn't matter, he said. They told me, we're clearing it soon anyway. The video went viral, over 200,000 views in the first day. That's when the other groups found us. A woman named Yolanda from Flatbush emailed me. Then a guy from Crown Heights. Then someone from Harlem. All with the same story. Mysterious fires, busted alarms, sudden buyouts, silence. We all met up at the warehouse one night. Doug brought folding chairs. Aaron made a whiteboard chart. By the end of the night, we had 5 fires, 4 different buildings, and one name at the top every time. Harborview. That's when Councilwoman Torres walked in. Didn't announce herself. Just nodded at the door guy and walked over to where we had code violations pinned on a corkboard. I've been watching, she said. I believe you. Belief's great, I said. Action's better. She looked at me hard. Then let's get the DA involved. A week later, we walked into the Manhattan District Attorney's office. Me, Aaron, Blake, and 2 tenants from the other buildings. We carried in everything. Stacks of documents, a binder of photos, recorded interviews, burned pieces from the original building. I even brought the busted matchstick carving and set it on the damn conference table like a protest flag. The assistant DA, a sharp woman named Russo, said nothing for 10 minutes while we laid it all out. Aaron handled the permits. Blake explained the shell companies. I walked her through the fire, piece by piece. Where it started, what failed, what we'd tried to report. She sat back, steepled her fingers, and finally said, "We'll be in touch." That was it. No promises, no hugs, no fireworks, just 4 words. But it was enough. We walked out of that office into the August heat, all of us sweating through our shirts but breathing lighter. Aaron clapped me on the shoulder. You ever think we'd end up testifying together? I chuckled. Better than arguing about cable bills. He grinned. Barely. That night, I added a new piece to the exhibit. A hand, carved from black walnut, gripping a torch made of twisted wire and copper pipe. The base was scorched brick from the fire site, sealed in resin. I called it evidence. We didn't need to shout anymore. The work was speaking for itself. The smell of linseed oil still hung in the air when she walked in again. Eliza Carver. Same blazer, same heels, same clipboard, but this time, she wasn't alone. The guy next to her was slick. Pinstripe suit, shiny shoes, clean shave, smug as hell. He didn't say hello, didn't look at the pieces on the wall, just walked straight to my work table like he owned the place and set down a leather folder. We'd like to make a final offer. Aaron was at the back bench sanding a maple beam. He froze mid-stroke and turned, slow. The suit flipped the folder open and slid it toward me. $150,000, he said. In cash, non-disclosure attached. You walk away, no more noise, no more press. I didn't touch it, just stared at the number. $150,000. That was more than I made in the last 5 years. That could replace every tool, every machine, upgrade the shop, get a new van, maybe even buy a house. Small, sure, but mine. Real security. Eliza didn't say anything, just watched me. She didn't blink. Aaron stepped forward and leaned hard on the table right between me and the folder. Don't you dare. He looked at me like he was reading my mind. I'm not, I said, voice low. The suit smiled, just slightly. We understand this has been difficult, Mr. Hargrave. We're not here to debate what happened. We're here to offer closure. That money's tax-free. It's yours by Monday. Aaron shook his head. Closure doesn't come with a receipt. The guy turned to him. Son. I'm not your son, Aaron snapped. That cracked the suit's polished face for a second. just enough to see the irritation underneath. I pushed the folder back across the table. "Tell your boss I'm not for sale." Eliza finally spoke. "Rick, this is the smart move, the practical one." I looked her dead in the eye. "You lit the fire and now you want to buy the ashes. I'm not selling." The suit snapped the folder shut. "We won't be back." I shrugged. "Didn't ask you to come." They left without another word. The second the door clicked shut, I sat down hard on the stool beside the lathe. My heart was pounding. My hands were steady, though. Aaron sat next to me, quiet for a minute. Then he said, "You really considered it?" Of course I did. I stared at the spot on the table where the folder had been. "But I didn't build all this just to fold the second they waved some money." He nodded. "Still, that was a lot of zeros." "Yeah," I said, "but if they're offering that much to shut me up, imagine what the truth is worth." That night, I slept better than I had in months. No dreams, no pacing, no waking up gasping like the smoke was still in my lungs. Just sleep, deep and still. I woke up at 5, same as always, and brewed a pot of the strong stuff. Walked the shop floor in silence, checked the locks, swept the shavings. The sky outside was still dark. The warehouse felt like a ship drifting steady in the middle of a storm. I looked at the wall where the new pieces were drying. The burned walnut hand. The names carved into the oak. The resin-locked teacup catching the first light from the rising sun. I picked up a pencil and started sketching on the bench next to the coffee. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. Because they'd thrown everything they had at me. Fire, money, silence, and I was still standing. They thought they were buying time. But what they really bought was mine. A week after I turned down the bribe, Russo from the DA's office called. "We're moving forward." 3 words. That's all she said. But I knew exactly what it meant. They were launching an official investigation. 2 days later, news broke that 2 building inspectors had been suspended without pay. Same ones who'd signed off on Harborview's permits in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. Turns out those guys had rubber-stamped projects without ever setting foot inside the buildings. Blake got wind of it fast. Ran the story with headline heat. Permits, profits, and fires. How a hedge fund cleared New York one burn at a time. He didn't pull punches. He had names, timelines, leaked emails. One of them literally said, "We'll own the block by next quarter." By Friday, Harborview's stock took a nosedive. Their hedge fund scrambled to put out press releases. But the damage was done. Turns out, Harborview hadn't just pulled permits for our building. They'd filed development plans for 5 buildings, before the fires even happened. All 5 ended up accidentally cleared by unfortunate electrical failures. Once that got out, Blake's piece went national. NBC, Reuters, even Rolling Stone ran a feature. I got a text from Doug. "You're famous, man. Don't let it go to your head." That weekend, one of Harborview's own cracked. Vice President of Acquisitions. Guy named Stephen Russo. No relation to the DA. He flipped after they froze his severance package. Walked into the DA's office and spilled everything. Said the fires were part of an off-books transition strategy. That's what they called it, transition strategy. Like we were just obstacles to be cleared off a map. His testimony was gold. Within days, the city froze all of Harborview's open permits pending legal review. Banks pulled out. Contractors bailed. The hedge fund behind it all went radio silent. Then their CEO resigned. Personal reasons, according to the statement. I didn't throw a party, didn't crack open champagne, but I did let myself smile, for the first time in a long while. That same week, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "This is the mayor's office," the voice said. "Mr. Hargrave, the mayor would like to discuss a potential partnership on affordable housing advocacy." I almost laughed right there on the phone. Instead, I said, "You want to do something real?" "Start by rebuilding my old building, but this time for working people." There was a pause on the line. Then, "We'll be in touch." By then, Smoke Damage wasn't just a warehouse in Brooklyn. It had gone mobile. A nonprofit reached out, Said they'd cover the transport and setup if I was willing to let it tour. I packed it up piece by piece. Aaron helped. Doug drove the trailer. First stop was L.A., then Chicago. Tenant unions in both cities were fighting the same war. Different buildings, different names, same dirty playbook. The minute the exhibit opened, people showed up. Not just to look, but to speak, to organize. I stood in a rented gallery in East Hollywood, watching a woman cry in front of the matchstick carving. She said, "My dad died in a building like this." I didn't say anything, just handed her a Sharpie. She wrote his name on the base of the sculpture. By the third city, we added a guest wall, hundreds of names, notes, stories, drawings. The whole damn country was bleeding, and nobody'd been listening until now. Back in New York, Councilwoman Torres pushed a bill freezing all demolition permits tied to suspected accelerated clearance tactics. It passed by a narrow vote. The same week, the city agreed to fund a new housing project, right on the ashes of our old building, and they asked me to help design it. Me, a guy with no college degree, no license, no filter, just hands that knew wood, and a mouth that refused to shut up. They wanted the new place to have a community woodshop in the basement, a shared rooftop garden, rent caps, real protections. For the first time since the fire, I felt something shift. Not in them, in me. One night, I sat in the warehouse alone. Doug and Aaron had already left, and looked at the empty spot where the walnut hand used to be. Gone now. But the mark it left on the wall? Still there. I picked up a chisel and carved a single word into the wood panel behind it. Stayed. Not burned. Not bought. Stayed. A year to the day after the fire, I stood in front of a brand new building with a big red ribbon stretched across the entrance and a pair of oversized scissors in my hand. The mayor gave a short speech, something about resilience and community, but I wasn't really listening. I was looking at the building, my building, same lot. New bones, 3 floors of affordable housing, solar panels, a rooftop garden, and in the basement, my favorite part, a fully outfitted community woodshop, pegboard walls, brand new tools, tables I built with my own hands, every edge sanded smooth, every corner squared tight. The place had my fingerprints on it, literally. I'd carved a small plaque by the shop entrance, made by the ones who stayed. Nolan moved into the first floor unit, same side of the hall where he used to live. He looked healthier than I'd seen him in years. Told me he was teaching some of the neighborhood kids how to fix squeaky doors and broken locks. The couple from 6D, Kara and Malcolm, were glowing. Their baby was bundled up in a sling across Kara's chest, tiny, squirmy, and loud. I held out a finger and the kid grabbed it with both fists. I almost cried. Didn't, but almost. Aaron showed up in a clean jacket, city shoes, and a fresh haircut. Looked like a damn campaign ad. He shook hands with every council person like he'd been doing it for years. "You're good at this," I muttered as he joined me by the steps. He smirked. "Mom says I get it from you." Let's not go crazy. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it short. "They thought they could burn us out," I said. "But we built back stronger. Together." The crowd clapped. Cameras flashed. But I didn't care about the attention. I just felt solid, like I'd finally put the weight down. Afterward, Aaron and I climbed to the rooftop garden. Rows of planter boxes, fresh soil, a few herbs already sprouting. You could see all the way across the block, old brick buildings, scaffolding, satellite dishes, rusted water towers. Aaron looked around and nodded. "Not bad, Dad. Not bad for an old woodworker," I said. We stood there a long time, watching the sun dip behind the skyline. Warm light spilled across the new building's facade. It lit up the windows, the handrails, the carved plaque by the shop door. I thought about that night a year ago, when Doug called me at 3 a.m. and told me my building was on fire. I'd laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I had nothing left to lose. Not then. And that meant, for the first time in my life, I finally had something worth fighting for. Would you have taken the $150,000? Or stood your ground like Rick? Drop your answer in the comments. We want to hear it. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.